The other reason you want to go to my website is to go down to the name Richard C. Hoagland and definitely click on Australian Confirmation of ET Signal. And that is what we are indeed discussing with Richard C. Hoagland, who is back now. Richard?
You are having such fun tonight, Art. I'm glad to see you're in a good frame of mind.
Hey, guess what? Scotty, as you call him.
Good old Scotty Rowland.
Keith has found the French site.
Excellent.
And he says that he has found an English version of the French site.
Oh.
If you just back up in the URL address a little bit, apparently you find some English stuff. Now, whether they actually cover the Pegasus stuff in English or not, we've yet to see, but Keith is on the track of it.
He is a good man.
Yes, he is. All right, so, again, it is your belief, in summary, that this whole Pegasus business that was on GeoCities, now covered with the scary NSA symbol, with all the information taken down, that in itself is very weird, is a well-orchestrated, and it was well-orchestrated, hoax to cover up...
I think part of it was a hoax. I'm beginning to think the door part was a hoax.
To cover up the fact that there really is a signal.
That's right. And, you know, it's that old joke, if you build it, they will come. What the GeoCities site did was to basically put out the story based around, in part, the BBC, Dr. Whitehouse, the BBC science editor.
Which is really where all this took off. Without the BBC folks, I think that this never would have blown up. The BBC ran the story, and then, of course, everybody took off.
So, of course, that raises the question, does Dr. Whitehouse, as an alum of Jodrell Bank, know something that we don't know and was hoping that there'd be other confirmations? In other words, what we're really getting into is a very philosophical area. It's kind of like why the Australians got a signal but claim they haven't got one. I don't think it's conspiracy. I think it's educational dysfunction. It's the Wright brothers thing. It's the 1903 story of flying heavier than aircraft in a psychological environment, a political environment where that is known to be impossible. And as you said, they flew for 2 years and the American press never wrote a story. Because, of course, it had to be a hoax. I think the SETI people are in the same vein. And we know this because of our very sad and long experience with the Cydonia problem. Remember, the main problem that Cydonia presents is that aliens don't stay safely at home, picking up, telephones and calling, across interstellar space.
Right.
They pick up the spaceships and move and put down roots and set up colonies and build cities and pyramids and faces. That's what Cydonia is saying, if it is real. And, of course, I affirm tonight that the data is overwhelming and it's real.
All right. Let me just quickly, shortly interrupt to say that apparently we don't have the English portion of this. Keith, on the links page, has posted Le Signal d'EQ Pegasus, and it's all in French. And so if somebody who can speak French would be kind enough to go up there and give us a summary of what it says, we'd all be very grateful. You'd think they could put it in English, but no. The French is up there.
By the way, let me digress into a bit of astronomical trivia.
All right.
Stars have various designations. They have proper names, like Procyon and Aldebaran and Sirius and Canis, whatever. All right.
Right.
Those are basically from the Arabs. They also have numbers. They also have Latin designations, alpha this, theta that, etc. I'm sorry, Greek designations. The EQ business is interesting because you eventually run out of names and numbers and letters, and there are only 26 letters in the alphabet. So the EQ, the two letters, stand for a double star. Double stars are given in certain catalogs, double letter designations, indicating it's a variable star.
Gotcha.
The star in question, EQ Pegasus, is 22 light years away. I mean, no one's going to forget that after this week, right? It's a little tiny dwarf system composed of two little M-type stars, which are dim red dwarfs, about 1/10,000th of the sun's brightness each.
I think it'd be really cool to look up into the sky and see not one but two suns.
Wouldn't it? We saw that in 2010.
We did, yes.
The ending?
I recall it very well indeed.
Where Jupiter's turned into a red dwarf?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, you got these two little red dwarf stars.
The NSA jamming is back, by the way.
I know. They found us. And that is very remarkable because it hasn't been, here for ever since I've been here, and then suddenly, as this whole story breaks, we get jamming on my phone lines.
Okay, I think the folks can probably hear it. It's this weird tone.
Anyway, so you have these two red dwarf stars, which are not the kind of place, as Elton John said, to raise your kids.
That's right.
And you get a statement, initially from Shostak back in September, that he was looking, raising the question, why would he look? Because there's not supposed to be anybody there anyway. And he detects a brief signal at 1210 megahertz. It goes away. You know, it's not real. It's interference. Nothing happens till mid-October when so-called Paul Dorr gets a signal.
Well, they did get very, very excited about it for a short time at SETI. I mean, I talked to Seth, and he said, look, the blood pressure began to rise. We thought we really had it.
I want to know why he was looking.
Why he was...
Yeah, because it's no place to look.
At an unlikely candidate.
Oh, incredibly unlikely. I mean, kind of like the last place to look. It reminds me of that old joke about the drunk who loses his car keys.
It is true that Seth did say it was an unlikely candidate. So you're right. Why did he look at it?
Given you've got limited time on the most extraordinary telescope in the world, and time is money and time is time, why would you look where there's no hope of finding something?
That's a very good point, Richard.
Thank you. Anyway, the whole point of this is that the EQ designation is also bizarre. There are more coincidences in this story, which hopefully we'll get through as we go through the morning.
All right.
Because EQ is a designation of a double star, right? A flaring star.
Yes.
Sorry. The M-type dwarfs do flare. They like sun flares, except 1,000 times or 10,000 times brighter, which would irradiate any planets with life on, by the way, which is another reason why Seth looking is weird. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
EQ, Pegasus. Pegasus is the flying horse, right? The horse with the wings?
Yes.
Okay. EQ, Latin, equine, equus, horse.
Horse.
Of all the stars to get a signal from, it's the one flare star in the whole Pegasus system with a designation that refers to Pegasus. EQ, equus, which is horse in Latin, for those people who never took Latin or fell asleep during Latin. And on and on. In other words, if you then flash forward the film,